Welcome to the Better Together podcast, where we look for ways we can work together to advance the gospel of Jesus Christ. Today, we have with us a youth pastor from Indiana, Wabash, Indiana, at Emmanuel Church. It's Dylan Persinger. And Dylan, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. I've interacted with you. I've been there to the church where you're the youth pastor, and I've seen you in action with a lot of the young people there all throughout the state. But I'm just sitting here wondering, how is it that you came? How did you find yourself to go into the ministry in the first place?
Yes, sir. Well, first off, let me just say thank you for letting me and taking your time out of your life to let me be on this podcast. What a privilege to do this. So God began to work on my life in around 2008, which was my sophomore year of high school, actually. My family started coming to church. We went to True Light Baptist in Muncie, Indiana, and my whole family, God just did a work in my family there at True Light around 2004. And then as a sophomore in high school, God began to move on my heart, actually at church camp, about going into the ministry. And it was Christian Powell, pastor of faith in Goldsboro, and he was preaching. I just remember, I can take you to the seat. I can take you to the building. I can tell you where Christian was standing. When he said that statement, he said, some of you young men, God's moving on your heart and you need to preach for him. And God began to stir my soul. And that was when he started speaking. And I knew without a doubt that that's what God was calling me to, but I really kind of ran from it. Really the rest of my high school career, just for various reasons. But it was after high school, Southeastern actually had a representing group that came and sang at one of the Free Will Baptist churches here. I believe it was Anderson, Indiana, where they came to sing. And I got to meet Heath Ferguson, and I got to hear them, and God just kept moving. And I knew that that's what God was doing. So it was through camp and that representation from Southeast.
Wow. How about that? So you were a Christian and God was doing great things with your family. You had this experience at camp, and that was a few years ago. You mentioned actually the year, but there's just something about camp, isn't there? That
Absolutely.
What is it? What do you think happened that the Lord was able to use Pastor Christian's message and that whole surrounding that happened where it was a little bit different than other experiences and other things you had done?
Yeah, well, let me tell you what I think is special about church camp is that it gets you out of the mundane routine of daily life. And sometimes even just a day or two of a conference struggles to do that. Where camp, especially where I grew up at Beechwood Lake, where Indiana camp was, even if you brought your phone, you really couldn't use it. We were out in the boonies. We didn't really have cell reception, and there have been speakers and different people who had to use their phone, and they had to find the right tree and touch it, and it just worked. It was just magic, it seemed like. But even if you brought your phone, you were still disconnected from the everyday life. And I think that's what we miss sometimes in our day-to-day is the solitude aspect. That we're able to unplug from the norm, from the noise, and let God just speak to us. To be able to just sit quietly and let God speak. And church camp does that. In our camp, even if you can bring a phone, but we actually tell them you're not allowed to. But if you do, you still don't have that reception anyway. So it's kind of a forced disconnection as well.
So you mentioned solitude, and really that's a spiritual discipline that we all need to have in our lives. But we think about over the years, camp has really been a way to have solitude, but even today it's needed more than in the past with the screens and all the rest of it. For you personally, it gave you a chance to really focus on the word and really focus on talking to the Lord. I take it, since you are leading the Indiana camp, that you see that camping is more important now than it's ever been.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And even today, I believe God is doing special things through church camp. And I'm going to say the same thing here that I tell our teenagers. You don't have to wait for camp, right? God can speak right there in your bedroom. He can speak by your locker. He can speak in youth group. He can speak on a walk. Uh, but it takes intentionality for sure while you're at home, where camp is almost, and I hate to use this term, but it's almost like a spoon fed. It's like we make it easy for you to disconnect from the day to day so that you can connect or reconnect with the Holy Spirit moving in your life.
So it's the great opportunity for that. And we see in scripture where Jesus would go away to a solitary place and spend time with the Father. Really, camp provides that. And so
Yeah.
I'm listening, and camp time is coming around the corner. Maybe I'm a parent. Maybe I just attend a church. Why should I support or encourage young people to go to camp? You just said
Well,
it. I guess I'm saying, how can I do that?
how can you do it? Well, I think the best way is to just send your kids, right? Make sure that they get there. And I can look back and, I started going to camp in 2004 when my family first started coming to church. And by God's grace, I've actually since 2004 not missed a year. I've been to at least 1 week of church camp since 2004, and it's always been the Indiana FWB Baptist Youth Camp.
Yeah.
Um, but I have missed out on staffing for various things. And I can remember at least one occasion in high school where I was in the marching band, and we had the Indiana State Fair that was the same week as junior week. And I was old enough to be able to staff junior week, and I missed it for the band day. So I missed a whole week of being able to staff at church camp for one day of the State Fair band day. And I still look back and regret my decision. Now, that was a fun day at the State Fair, but I missed a whole week of being able to serve at church camp. And I regret it. And, I've had parents who they've told me, I'm not going to let my student go because they're in trouble for some reason, right? They've disobeyed, they've whatever, so I'm not going to let them go to church camp. And in my mind, my soul is crying because I'm telling you, what your kid needs
Yes.
is some.
You're gonna get in more trouble now. I mean,
it's the extra special time where maybe they can disconnect from what was getting them in trouble so that they
yeah.
can hear from the Lord. And so definitely the support comes from the attendance.
And so I'm hearing you say camp is a priority. So,
Mm-hmm.
maybe we were going to go do this for one day, but don't give up a week of church camp. Or please, don't discipline your children, as by not letting them go to something that's going to help them to not get in more trouble later, probably. Other ways, what if I'm a church that doesn't have children? There's even ways we can participate in camp, aren't there?
Yeah, especially, with Indiana Camp, we try to keep our cost as minimal as possible. We try to not have, we want to make it easy for kids to be able to come to church camp. And so obviously the main thing we would desire is prayer. We want people praying for us because we can have all the money in the world, but if we don't have the Lord's leading in that week, we are missing the point entirely. So the first support would be through prayer, but then obviously financially. When people donate toward church camp, or if students are doing fundraisers within their church, but a church without students, I would say the best way they can support is to say, hey, what kind of items can we give?
Mm-hmm.
We don't we don't let the camp that we go to, they don't make our food. We actually provide everything. We make everything. We provide our own staff. We do all those things. So that's a lot of cereal.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's a lot of cereal. That's a lot of spaghetti. That's a lot of chicken sandwiches, all of the things that I can remember. That's a lot of potatoes. So if you can think of ways that you can help donate items or be able to give financially to be able to offset those costs, then we're able to keep the cost low for students to go to church camp.
That's great. And we like to say, if you don't have any kids, go get some. And so
Yes,
uh,
yes.
I think you may know Stan Coker. He directs the Cumberland camp in Tennessee, and
Okay, yeah.
he'll often challenge a church. Do you know someone? Do you know someone that has a kid or someone in the community? Is there a young person that you as a church could pay for them to go to camp? And guess which church they're going to check out once they find Jesus at camp and all the rest of it. So I think what I hear
Oh,
you saying is there's something for everyone. While when you know the kids are at camp, to be praying throughout that week, we all can do things to support camp. So you all, I've seen a lot of the kids, the different activities they do there at Emmanuel. Our kids go off, they're getting ready to go to camp. What can I as a church do to prepare them for that if they're coming from my church that I pastor or that I attend? And then once they go off the camp, what can we do to kind of reinforce what opportunities have arisen from that period of solitude?
yeah. So I would say that our goal as a camp is not to really have an experience, but to be a springboard into a lifestyle. That if during this week we are preparing, like, so we have a booklet that we make for camp that has room to take notes for sermons. It has devotions each day of the week. But it also, the goal for that is to kind of get kids in a routine so that when they go home, they don't stop taking notes. They
Mm-hmm.
don't stop doing their devotions. So we try to include like discussion questions, we include a small thought, and oftentimes we will pair our booklet and it will be maybe excerpts from something else that they can go purchase when they get home. We like to connect kids to the Robbie Gallaty D groups. And
Mm-hmm.
so we'll include like a QR code in there so that when they get home, they can continue their reading where they started at camp and just keep going with those actually free resources, right? You can download
Yeah.
the daily plans there. And so, like I said, just trying to make it easy and accessible so that that camp can be, like I said, not just an experience, but a beginning of a trend, a beginning of a habit of communion with the Lord every day.
Oh, that's wonderful. And so you're saying what they learned a lot about prayer. They maybe for the first time started reading their Bible. You're saying maybe continue that on, like, and might
Yes.
even try to set up some D groups to keep all of that keep all of that going, and maybe even have them share a bit about what happened at camp. Maybe some people or parents that were a little bit on the fence, but they realize, hey, this would have been better than that one day of at the state fair or whatever. It could have been helpful. That's great stuff, Dylan.
Yes. And if I might add, as a
Yeah.
youth pastor, right? So I get to direct the camp, but then I come home and I'm their youth pastor. So I kind of get both sides of the coin in this situation. And so while I'm at camp, I'm trying to think when I go home and I am now taking these students who have been at camp, what can I do in youth group? What can I promote in my church that will encourage them to create the camp atmosphere in their own situation?
Very
So
good.
I promote, hey, take a time out in your day.
Yeah.
Take time to have solitude. Take time for the word. Take
Yeah.
time for prayer. Cut it out because that week of camp, we cut it out for you. You got to cut it out yourself when you get home.
Oh, that's great. And so maybe your church doesn't have a youth pastor, but we as parents can do that, or some other person within the church as well. You've had a lot of people go through camp across the years, Dylan, and a lot of decisions. And we've talked about how many of them have gone off to some of our colleges and so forth. Are you able to identify and say, hey, here's a guy that people would know that would be a product of our camp? And it kind of shows that what you're doing, it truly does work across time.
Yeah, so a couple names come to mind with the impact of Indiana Camp. One, or they're both dear friends. One is Doug Phillips, who is the principal at Bethel Christian Academy there in Kinston, North Carolina. But another one that maybe more people see would be Derek Altum. Derek Altum with D6, and he's now heading up V3. I actually talked to him this week to confirm this. He got saved at the Indiana FWB Baptist Youth Camp, and he also answered the call to ministry there at Indiana Camp. And I have several buddies of mine. In fact, that my two main go-tos right now, his name is J.C. Frank, Joseph Taylor. These are two guys that it's me and those two where we're kind of, I don't know, the lead creatives, I guess, of camp, where they are a product of our camp, a product of camp, but now they're wholeheartedly just diving into it themselves to see this thing keep moving on. And if I might add, we just celebrated last year 70 years of our church
Oh,
camp here in
unbelievable.
Indiana. So very long standing, but just thinking of Derek and the impact that he has had, and he has actually come back like for our state meetings and done sessions and spoken. And it's just really neat to see the domino effect of what camp has done in these guys' lives.
So you're not going to believe this, Dylan, but Derek is my Sunday school teacher. That could actually be a prayer item. I don't know, but so
You
the
might need camp after that.
I might need camp. The other thing is he calls himself Mr. Better Together because he says he's been on here more than any other person, except for maybe Dr. Pickrilly. I don't know, but
Maybe.
that is something that, as you think about it, those are people that just come to your mind. Over 70 years, there's been a lot of them. I can't help it, but Doug, he's the principal of the school where I went to church. I went to school at, and my
Hmm.
parents were there at Bethel and Kinston. And then today, guys that went to camp are now helping you do camp.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
And to me, it just shows that it's worth it. I know sometimes in ministry, you wonder, am I just spinning my wheels? Is this really making an impact on people? And it has a different impact on different people. But when you start seeing people go into the missions field, people
Yep.
who are pastoring, people who are faithful in a day-to-day job. Maybe they're an employer, maybe they're just an employee somewhere, but they're faithful to the Lord in that ministry, and it started at camp. Those are things that to me it makes it all worth it. That we're not putting in this effort for nothing.
That's great. Well, that's good information, Dylan. And you've given us some good things to think about. So, hey, you're listening. I really encourage you, if you're a parent, send your kids to camp. Maybe you're a grandparent or you don't have any children, think about scholarshiping someone, helping them. Because Dylan, you've shared some great information. You're an example as well. You know how
Thank you.
it helped you. It was a life-changing moment, and boom, there you are leading this camp and doing what you are at Emmanuel Church as well. Boy, I appreciate you sharing this with us today, buddy. This has been great information.
Yes, and thank you for the privilege. It's been amazing just to see God move, and you just never know. If I might put a shameless plug on Sunday school too,
Yes,
God changed my life in Sunday school. I got
yeah,
saved in Sunday school, and the teacher was not a pastor. He was actually at the time like a maintenance, like a janitor at the
yeah.
public high school that I went to. His name was J.R. Sutliff, and he was just faithful. And I think that's what God is blessing with our camp and with camps in general, is to just be faithful to it. And what we're seeing is the fruit of the faithfulness in serving there, and all glory be to Christ for it all.
Oh, so true, so true. So we thank the Lord for giving us these opportunities, and we thank the Lord for these people who were faithful, as you said, and shared and taught and helped us in so many ways. Well, thank you, brother.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you.
And we thank you for taking the time to be with us today. We want to encourage you to take this podcast, share it with someone that you think would benefit from it. Remember, every little thing we do, it really does matter. It makes a difference in the kingdom of the Lord, and we accomplish so much more when we work together. We're better together. Thank you.